I knew my position was in serious jeopardy when my Slack notification pinged at exactly 4:47 on a rainy Friday afternoon. You know that sound? That cheerful, hollow knock that usually means someone broke the coffee machine or wants to know if there are leftover bagels in the break room. But this was no bagel. This was a digital grenade with the pin pulled, tossed into my lap by a 20-something named Justin who thinks data integrity is a band he saw at a music festival. I am Lawrence, a senior compliance analyst at a tech firm that changes corporate strategy more often than a teenager swaps phone cases. I have been here 12 years. I am practically part of the office furniture. Actually, I am the load-bearing wall keeping the ceiling from collapsing on these children. I do not have a social media following. I do not talk about corporate alignment. I simply fix disasters when the sales team promises illegal features to clients. I am the janitor of the digital world, mopping up liability with database scripts and a pack of cigarettes waiting for me in my glove box. I actually enjoy compliance work. It is like putting together a giant puzzle where half the pieces are hidden under the sofa by toddlers. It requires patience, a quiet desk, and a complete lack of interest in company politics. I looked at my secondary monitor. It was a forwarded thread. Justin, our growth hacker, a title that means nothing, had meant to send it to Bradley Higgins, my manager. Bradley is 32, wears vests that are too tight, and has a smile that never reaches his dead eyes. He has been trying to push me out since he was hired 6 months ago, mostly because I ask questions like, is this legal, or do you want to explain this to federal regulators? The message from Justin read, Yo Bradley, draft is done. We are going to toast the dinosaur at the holiday party. Slide deck attached. The inefficiency of legacy employees. It painted me as the bottleneck for our third quarter missed targets. The presentation went on to claim that my insistence on security audits had cost the sales division $45,000 in potential commissions and delayed our marketing push by 3 weeks. It was complete nonsense. The new vice president was going to be there. This is the kill shot, Justin wrote. She, meaning me, though they got my gender wrong in their excitement, won't even know what hit her until we are clinking glasses. My stomach dropped, feeling like I had swallowed a bag of ice cubes. The dinosaur, creative. I had not heard that one since the last manager who tried to replace me. He is currently managing a car wash in Ohio. I stared at my screen. My heart was not racing. It was doing that slow, heavy thudding you feel right before a car crash. I clicked the attachment. I should not have access. But Justin is the kind of genius who sets permissions to anyone with the link because clicking 2 extra buttons is too much friction. The slide deck was a masterpiece of fiction. It was beautiful in a grotesque way. They had charts, graphs, and fabricated timelines showing me blocking critical updates. They accused me of rubber stamping approvals for my old friends while stonewalling the innovators, meaning Justin and his friends. They were planning to present this live at the company holiday party next Friday. This would happen in front of our new vice president of operations, Howard Garrison, who has a reputation for cutting corporate waste with a machete. They were not just going to fire me. They were planning to publicly humiliate me, destroy my reputation, and use my corporate corpse as a stepping stone to get Bradley Higgins a promotion. I sat there as the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The office was emptying out. The crew, including Bradley, Justin, and a woman named Chloe who speaks in human resources buzzwords, were by the elevators, laughing. I could see them through the glass walls. Bradley was mimicking a golf swing. Justin was checking his smartwatch every 4 seconds. They looked so happy, so confident. They looked like people who had trapped a badger in a corner and were poking it with a stick, unaware that the badger was actually a honey badger with a deep understanding of corporate law and a grudge. I did not scream or throw my stapler. I took a sip of my lukewarm, bitter coffee and felt a cold, metallic calm wash over me. In the corporate world, tears are just lubricant for the machine that eats you. I downloaded the slide deck and took a screenshot of the Slack message. Then I extracted the metadata from the file to prove Justin created the deck on company time, probably while he was supposed to be completing the mandatory compliance training I assigned him 3 weeks ago. They wanted to frame me for abusing system access. That was rich. That was like framing a fish for swimming. They forgot one tiny detail. I built the access logs. I wrote the code that tracks every keystroke, every permission change, every time someone goes near a sensitive server. They thought they were writing a hit piece on me, but they were drafting their own confessions. I looked at the clock. It was 5:02. The elevators dinged, taking the crew down to happy hour. I was alone. I opened the terminal on my computer, the black screen with the blinking cursor. It is the only honest thing in this building. It does not lie or gaslight. It just executes. I typed in my administrator credentials and went hunting. Monday morning rolled in with the grace of a garbage truck backing into a dumpster. I walked into the office wearing my standard armor, a charcoal gray cardigan, sensible slacks, and an expression that said, "I am thinking about spreadsheets. Please do not perceive me." This is the gray rock method. If you are boring enough, predators lose interest. They want a reaction. They want drama. I gave them nothing but the ambient hum of a server fan. The atmosphere in the office was thick with a kind of manic holiday energy that makes me want to gargle bleach. There was tinsel wrapped around the support pillars. Someone had put a Santa hat on the three-dimensional printer, and there huddled in the glass-walled conference room, affectionately known as the fishbowl, was the clique. Bradley, Justin, Chloe, and a few other hangers-on were pointing at a whiteboard, laughing. When I walked past, the laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by that performative, hushed seriousness people adopt when the subject of their gossip walks into the room. Bradley waved at me, actually waved a little finger wiggle that was equal parts condescending and nervous. "Morning, Lawrence. Excited for the party on Friday," he chirped, his voice pitching up at the end like he was asking a question to which he already knew the answer. "Thrilled, Bradley," I said, not breaking stride. "I am just hoping the open bar has something strong enough to kill the memory of the third quarter." He laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "That is the spirit. Hey, keep your schedule clear around 8 in the evening, okay? We have a little recognition segment planned. Want to make sure the whole team is there." Recognition segment. That is corporate speak for public execution. I nodded like a dead-eyed mannequin. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. I made it to my desk, sat down, and immediately plugged in. While they were busy choosing fonts for my tombstone, I was performing a digital audit on their entire work history. You see, people like Bradley and Justin think the cloud is a magic, fluffy place where data lives. They do not understand that the cloud is just someone else's computer. And right now, I have the keys to the castle. I started with the basics, system access logs. I wanted to see exactly when and how they had accessed the files they claimed I had mishandled. But what I found was messy. It was not just that they were incompetent, they were sloppy. Justin's log was a disaster zone. The kid had been logging in from unsecured IP addresses at 2 in the morning. I traced the IP. It was not a residential address in the suburbs where he lives with his parents. No, it was a luxury apartment complex downtown. So, who lives downtown? I cross-referenced the IP address with the employee database. Nothing. Then I ran it against our vendor list. Bingo. It matched the billing address for a third-party consulting firm we use, Vanguard Partners, a firm that coincidentally Bradley had brought on board 3 months ago to optimize workflow. So Justin, or someone using Justin's credentials, was logging in from the apartment of an external vendor in the middle of the night. Interesting. Why would a vendor need a junior growth hacker's login unless they were bypassing the vendor security protocols I had set up? I kept digging. The office air smelled like stale coffee and that distinct ozone scent of overheating electronics. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, playing nothing, just to mute the sound of Chloe discussing her vision board 3 desks away. I pulled up the change management logs. These are the holy scriptures of information technology. Every time code is changed, every time a permission is elevated, it is recorded here, or it should be. The slide deck they prepared claimed I had unilaterally blocked critical updates on November 12th. I went to November 12th in the logs. There was no block. In fact, there was an approval from my account. But, wait, I looked at the timestamp, 3:14 in the morning. I am a 52-year-old man with a mortgage and a cat with health issues. I am asleep at 3:14 in the morning. I am not approving code pushes. My blood ran cold then hot. They had not just fabricated the slide deck. They had actually used my account to fake the evidence. Someone had spoofed my credentials to approve a code change that, when I checked the ticket details, resulted in a 4-hour outage the next morning, an outage they blamed on legacy system instability. They broke the system, used my name to sign off on it, and were now planning to present the fix as their brilliant innovation while pinning the breakage on me. It was elegant in a sociopathic way. I looked up across the office. Bradley was leaning over Chloe's desk, pointing at her screen. They looked so normal, just co-workers collaborating, not a cabal of fraudsters. This is the scariest part of corporate betrayal, the banality of it. They do not twirl mustaches. They wear vests and drink oat milk lattes while they stab you in the aorta. I needed more than just a timestamp. A timestamp is circumstantial. Maybe you were working late, Lawrence, they would say. Maybe you forgot. I needed proof that it was not me. And then I remembered my personal monitoring tool. About 6 months ago, I had quietly deployed a beta version of a new auditing tool I was writing. I called it the Panoptic. I wrote this script on my own time, on my own machine, and registered it with the United States Copyright Office under Title 17, United States Code, Section 106. By copying my proprietary code to the company's production server, they had not just violated corporate policy, they had committed copyright infringement. It was running in the background of the kernel, silently recording not just what happened, but where the mouse moved, the typing cadence, the biometric metadata if available. I had spent 3 months coding the Panoptic during my weekends. It was designed to monitor kernel-level system activities and intercept any unauthorized administrative requests. The primary reason I registered it under copyright law was to protect my own intellectual property. I knew that in this industry, if you build something useful on company time, they will claim it is theirs. But since I wrote every single line of code at my kitchen table, using my personal laptop, and without utilizing any company resources, the copyright belongs to me. If they tried to repurpose it or distribute it without my written consent, it would be a clear case of infringement, and I had the registration certificate from the federal government to prove it. I had not checked the Panoptic logs in weeks because it was a side project. My hands trembled slightly as I queried the database for November 12th. The terminal blinked and data streamed down the screen like the Matrix code, only greener and uglier. User Lawrence Admin. Action approve request number 9902. Timestamp 3:14 in the morning. Device ID. I froze. The device ID was not my laptop. It was not my desktop. It was a physical address I did not recognize immediately. But the Panoptic captures something else. Bluetooth handshake data. If a phone or watch is near the computer when an action is taken, the system logs the handshake attempt. At 3:14 in the morning, the device approving that request under my name was within 3 feet of an iPhone, with the Bluetooth identifier belonging to Bradley Higgins's personal phone. I leaned back, the leather of my chair creaking like an old door. Gotcha. They were so busy looking at the ceiling, trying to drop an anvil on my head, that they forgot to look at the floor where I had rigged the trapdoor. Bradley had logged in as me, probably using a keylogger or a password he sniffed when I was helping him with his email, to sabotage the system just so he could fix it and look like a hero. The rage I felt was not the hot, screaming kind anymore. It was cold. It was absolute zero. It was the kind of rage that can wait. I saved the logs, I encrypted them, and then I copied them to a USB drive attached to my keychain. I looked up. Bradley was heading to the break room. He caught my eye and flashed that plastic smile again. Working hard or hardly working, he called out. Just tidying up some loose ends, Bradley, I replied, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. Just making sure everything is clean for the vice president. Great, that is what we like to hear, team player. He walked away whistling. I watched him go. He was walking straight into a wood chipper, and he was whistling a Christmas carol. Tuesday and Wednesday were a blur of faux festivity and silent warfare. The office was now fully weaponized with holiday cheer. We are talking aggressively sparkly garlands that shed plastic needles into your keyboard, and a looping playlist of holiday music that I am pretty sure violates international treaties. While the crew was busy printing out full-color handouts for their little assassination plot, I was deep in the digital sewers, wading through the sludge of their incompetence. And let me tell you, it was worse than I thought. It was not just the sabotage on November 12th. That was just the tip of the iceberg. The visible part meant to sink me. The part below the water was pure, unadulterated fraud. I found a folder on the shared drive that had been hidden. In Windows, marking a folder as hidden is like putting a towel over an elephant and assuming nobody can see it. Inside, I found the real reason for their desperate need to get rid of me. Backdated compliance forms, dozens of them. See, in our industry we have strict regulations about data privacy. Every time we onboard a new vendor like Vanguard Partners, we need to run a 40-point security audit that takes weeks. Bradley had not just bypassed the audit for Vanguard Partners, he had forged it. He had taken an old audit form from a legitimate vendor, used a PDF editor to slap Vanguard's logo on it, and literally copy-pasted my electronic signature onto the bottom. I stared at the pixelated signature on my screen. It was hilarious. Bradley had literally used a low-resolution screenshot of a signature I had written on a whiteboard during a training session 2 years ago. The edges were fuzzy, and the background color of the image did not even match the white background of the PDF document. He had not even bothered to clean up the margins. It was a lazy, rushed job, the kind of work you expect from someone who spends more time planning his golf weekends than reading technical documentation. But it was enough to fool the automated procurement software, which only looked for a file path containing a signature image rather than verifying the cryptographic hash. Why go to such lengths for Vanguard Partners? I followed the money. I accessed the procurement logs. Yes, I have read access to those too. I helped build the database in 2014. Vanguard Partners was billing us $15,000 a month for consulting. The invoices were vague, filled with nonsense terms like strategic alignment and synergy optimization. I did a little open source intelligence work. I looked up the incorporation documents for Vanguard Partners. It is a public record in our state. The registered agent was a woman named Helen Higgins. The business description was simply General Management, which is the most generic, red flag description you can write for a shell company. I went to Bradley's public social media page. I scrolled back 2 years and found a photo of Bradley at a family barbecue, arm around a woman, with the caption, "Happy birthday to the best mom in the world, Helen." Her middle initial on the corporate filing matched her Facebook profile name perfectly. There it was, the smoking gun, the bloody knife. Bradley Higgins was funneling company money to a shell company owned by his mother. He was approving the invoices himself and forging my signature on the compliance documents to cover his tracks. As a manager, he owed the firm a fiduciary duty. Funneling $15,000 a month of corporate funds into a family shell company was a textbook breach of fiduciary duty. Under corporate law, the dissipation of assets refers to the frivolous or fraudulent spending of corporate funds. Paying $15,000 monthly for consulting services that did not exist was the very definition of asset dissipation. The entire contract he signed with Vanguard Partners was void ab initio, meaning it had no legal standing from the moment it was signed because it was based on forged signatures and fraudulent misrepresentations. If I had not looked, if I had just accepted the firing and signed the severance agreement, he would have gotten away with it. He would have been promoted, and he would have kept milking the company dry. But he made one mistake. He tried to make me the fall guy. Now I had a choice. I could go to human resources right now, but human resources exists to protect the company, not the employee. If I went to them now, they might panic. They might try to sweep it under the rug to avoid a scandal before the new vice president settles in. They might fire Bradley, but they would probably fire me too for unauthorized access just to clean the slate. No, I needed something louder. I needed to let them pull the trigger, only to realize the gun was pointed backward. I also remembered the company's recent layoffs. We had recently terminated 15 support staff members without notice. I had warned Bradley that failing to comply with the Warning Act under Title 29, United States Code, Section 2101 would invite a massive class action lawsuit from the Department of Labor, but he had ignored me. It proved his complete disregard for compliance. I went back to the Panoptic. I needed to tweak the code. The holiday party presentation was going to be run from the main conference room server. I wrote a script. The script monitored the central display server, looking for specific keywords in any file being projected. Keywords like Lawrence, compliance bottleneck, and legacy efficiency. If the system detected those keywords being projected live, it would execute a command. It would take the encrypted packet of evidence I had compiled, the logs of Bradley using my account, the Bluetooth handshake, the forged PDFs, the invoices to his mother's shell company, and instantly email them. It would go to the general counsel, the head of human resources, the external auditors, and Howard Garrison, the new vice president of operations. Subject line: automated audit alert, internal fraud detected. I tested the script in a sandbox environment. It worked perfectly. All they had to do was walk into the room and start their presentation. The moment they put my name on that screen to shame me, they would digitally ruin themselves. Friday morning arrived with a grim inevitability. The office was vibrating. The bagel crew was in rare form. Bradley was wearing a velvet blazer. Justin was wearing a ridiculous holiday sweater. Chloe was wearing reindeer antlers. I spent the day doing absolutely nothing. Around 2 in the afternoon, Travis, a junior developer I had mentored during his internship, approached my desk. He looked incredibly nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He licked his dry lips and mumbled that I should not go to the party tonight. He advised me to call in sick or claim a family emergency. He said Bradley had spent the morning rehearsing his presentation and was planning to use my work as a prime example of legacy, bottleneck, and system inefficiency. He did not want me to be humiliated in front of the entire division. I thanked Travis for his courage. I knew he was risking his standing with the group just to warn me. At 4:30, I packed my things. I took my framed photo of my cat, my lucky stapler, and my spare cardigan. When I walked back in here on Monday, everything would be different. I drove home, stopped at the liquor store, and bought a $40 bottle of Cabernet. I set up my command center on the kitchen table. Laptop open, VPN connected, left monitor showing Slack, right monitor showing the terminal window. I poured a glass of wine. The clock read 7:45. The party was starting. At 8:14 in the evening, the Slack channel was popping off. On my right monitor, the terminal text showed the presentation server was active. They were loading the file. Bradley was walking onto the stage in his velvet blazer, ready to deliver his presentation to the vice president. At 8:21, the slide advanced. Slide 4, then slide 5, the bottleneck slide. The text detection triggered. The words on my screen turned from green to red. Trigger condition met. Executing script. In a millisecond, the script grabbed the payload and emailed the entire evidence packet to the general counsel, HR director, external auditors, and Howard Garrison. Then the second part of the script took over. The presentation screen in the ballroom went completely black, and then white text appeared. System audit triggered. Unauthorized data manipulation detected. Report sent to Legal Compliance Office of the VP. Please stand by for further instructions. The Slack channel went dead silent. Bradley was clicking his clicker, but nothing happened. He was panicking. In the logs, I saw him trying to force close the application and reboot the server. Access denied. His account was automatically locked due to the fraud flag. They tried a hard reset, but it required dual-factor authentication from a C-level executive or the vice president. They had to ask Howard Garrison for the code to turn off the screen that was accusing them of fraud. At 8:35, they gave up. Gossip leaked that the vice president had walked out with the legal team, and Bradley was shaking. Following them, my phone rang. It was Bradley. I let it ring. He called again. I picked it up. Bradley's voice was shaking so hard I could hear his teeth chattering. He was no longer the confident manager who wore velvet blazers and laughed in the conference room. He was a cornered animal, realizing that his entire career, his financial stability, and his freedom were disappearing in real time. He was screaming, telling me to fix the system, that I was fired. I calmly told him it was not a glitch and asked if he had checked his email. I explained that the system detected the forged compliance forms and the invoices to Vanguard Partners. He tried to tell me that we could split the money, that Vanguard Partners could pay me a consulting fee of $5,000 a month if I just cleared the server logs. He was offering me a bribe over a recorded cellular line. I did not even have to point out how stupid that was. I just let the silence stretch between us, listening to the muffled sounds of the hotel ballroom in the background. The music had stopped completely, replaced by a low murmur of confused voices and the occasional clinking of glasses. The holiday party had turned into an emergency board meeting. He stammered that I hacked him, that it was illegal. I told him I did not hack him. I audited him, and he triggered it himself. He tried to bargain, begging me to enter the code, promising a raise. I told him it was too late. The signature line read that copies were sent to the board's audit committee because the fraud exceeded $10,000. The contract with Vanguard Partners was void ab initio, and the case was out of our hands. I hung up. Walking into the office on Monday morning was like walking into a cathedral after a bomb had gone off. Bradley's desk was empty, cleared out by security. He was terminated for cause, facing criminal charges for wire fraud and embezzlement. Justin and Chloe were suspended pending investigation. I went to see Howard Garrison. When I walked into the vice president's office on Monday, Howard Garrison did not look like a man who had just spent his weekend dealing with a corporate fraud scandal. He looked focused, his desk cleared of everything except my report and a fresh cup of black coffee. He told me that the external auditors had already confirmed the Vanguard Partners invoices. Over the last 3 months, Bradley Higgins had funneled $45,000 of corporate funds to his mother's account. Garrison explained that the company's legal counsel was already preparing a formal complaint for the district attorney's office. He thanked me for my diligence, saying that if I had not intervened, the company would have faced millions of dollars in regulatory fines during the next annual audit. He said that my actions saved the firm from complete disaster and that he wanted to ensure the compliance department had the resources it needed to prevent this from ever happening again. He promoted me to Director of Internal Controls, reporting directly to him, with a corner office and a significant raise. I requested a budget to formalize my audit software, the Panoptic, which he approved. I walked out of his office. The ledger was balanced, the error was corrected. The growth hackers were gone, and the culture had shifted to moving carefully. I sat in my new office, drank an espresso, and looked at the files. The future was facing wire fraud. The past was sitting in a leather chair. I went to Reddit, started writing the post, and hit publish. Then I pulled up a YouTube video of Danny DeVito eating a hard-boiled egg for 10 hours, put my feet up, and smiled. Vengeance was complete.